Well, just days away from his retirement now, we continue a look back at John Boel's most memorable work with a look back at one of Louisville's darkest days ever. He actually covered Louisville's first mass shooting back in 1989. And John, you join us now. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so in 2019, 30 years after the Standard Gravure massacre, we spoke with the heroes and survivors from that day who vividly describe how going through something like that still affected them decades later.
They'd gone 90 days without a workplace injury. They've gone 30 years with these workplace memories.
And he had this big black rifle, and he just blasted away.
On September 14th, 1989, the sign inside the Standard Gravure printing plant was supposed to spell danger, but anger erased everything.
This door opened, and this muzzle was about as big as that camera, you know, looked like when he pushed it open, and he just went pow, pow, pow.
A disgruntled worker who'd been vowing for a year to get even after being placed on disability walked in with a duffel bag full of guns. He went with the AK-47.
He shot everybody 3 times, stepped outside, turned the clip over, and came back in and started backwards.
Mike Campbell shot 6 times in a lunchroom filled with guys who had nowhere to go.
When I went down on the table, I turned my head that way, opposite of him, and hoping he wouldn't see me breathe. I was holding my breath and everything else, and I thought, what in the hell is happening? I'm going to get shot. I mean, I got shot. I have no idea why.
And I sort of curled up and laid on one side, trying to show
Trying to like play dead?
Yeah, I was trying to show I wasn't breathing.
Yes.
I mean, I didn't want to move a finger.
Gordon Shearer was in the lunchroom too. It's taken 30 years, but he can finally talk about it.
I just laid there, opened my eyes.
Sort of.
Floor's just covered in blood. I didn't know whether I could move my arms, legs. And then the door came open, and it started all over again. He emptied it in there again.
People were hiding under their desk, and a couple of gentlemen were hiding in the bathroom.
There was no such thing as active shooter training in 1989, no police policy. The first arriving officers rushed inside without body armor, along with TV news photographers.
You know, it's the old saying, you'd rather be a dead hero than a live coward. The thing I remember most about that day is none of us had any regard of getting injured.
We went in the door and got on the elevator and went up to the second floor, and you could smell gunpowder in the elevator.
On September 14th, Louisville learned it didn't have enough ambulances or gurneys, so police rushed victims to the hospital in their patrol cars.
At the time, why don't the EMS come? Where is EMS? But they were there. They was overwhelmed. They didn't have the personnel or the equipment to handle that kind of situation at that time.
Somehow, Gordon Shearer got out of the trapped lunchroom, hit only once by a bullet that had traveled through his dead coworker.
And I got out the side doors and to the guard shack, and the guards grabbed me and they said, sit down here, sit down here. Said, you're hurt bad. I said, hell, you don't know what bad is.
When the gunman killed himself, there were 8 bodies to transport after the 12 wounded survivors. 30 years later, the Standard Gravure massacre doesn't even make the top 20 deadliest U.S. shootings list anymore. Plant's long gone. But if you turn on the TV, after what seems like monthly mass shootings now, you'll hear the same sound bites we aired 30 years ago.
It's unfortunate that people blame an object like this for a person's problems.
And I cannot understand why a country as progressive as ours would allow any ordinary citizen to own an assault rifle, which by its very description defines its purpose.
One thing has changed since then. All 3 survivors I interviewed have severe PTSD. I caught up with Jackie Miller as she was being evicted from her apartment. Shot 4 times that day. She had 7 surgeries on her leg. But what's going on in her head is the real problem.
I wake up mornings. Most people wake up and they see what's in their bedroom with pictures on the wall and the sheet and the window. I see blood. I see my blood and my insides, all the skin that got blown out of me, running down the wall at Standard Gravure.
Mike Campbell didn't start suffering from PTSD until 8 years ago.
I'll get up sometime and I'll be crazy because, can't you see that person over there? There would be people in the room walking through.
The first time Gordon Shearer left the house 2 years after the shooting, there was a birthday party at the restaurant he was at.
Somebody saw fit to start popping balloons, and with that, I was up on my feet. I turned tables and chairs over, and I run into all kinds of stuff, and I made a mess before I got out of there, but I got out of there.
He got out of the restaurant, he got out of Standard Gravure, and he got out of this interview early because I could tell how badly it was tearing him up to relive it all. The only question left is one I don't have to ask, because he does all the time.
I wonder why I'm still here.
Wow, that's an incredible story. And it's crazy to hear those sound bites, too, from 30-plus years ago and see that not much has changed.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was a second part to this story. We obtained 30 years later all of the medical records for the shooter, Joseph Westbecker, and all the video, a lot of the video that you saw right there in the plant. And it was interesting. Westbecker had been talking about doing this for 6 or 8 years. A couple days before the shooting, his doctor took him off Prozac and recommended he be hospitalized, but of course, he didn't go to the hospital, and the rest is history.
And now you've covered 2 mass shootings in Louisville, correct? So how does the most recent one compare, you think, to this? Is there any comparison?
Well, it's the same arguments you saw afterward. Yeah. Politically, I know after the second one, I anchored 17 hours of coverage in the 3 days after this second one, and I had to go get mental health treatment. Like, it messed me up. So I think the compilation of this over time is what messes you.
Yeah. Well, what an incredible story, John. And again, those stories will be posted online as well if you want to go back and rewatch those. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll have more Wave News after this.